Right, we are live. Sweet. Co-host. Let's have a look. Where is Luke? Sweet. Does anyone want to join? Debate extinction. Should life keep existing? Come and debate. The answer is no. Life should not exist. It's a terrible thing. If you want to come and debate this, join the stream now. Let's talk it through. Jobby Lee Chu. Do you want to debate extinctionism? Do you think life is better off existing or not existing? We are going to get some serious debaters on, hopefully. If anyone wants to join the stream and debate, is life better off existing or would it be much better off not existing? This is part of the pro-extinction movement, the movement to actually... Hey Julio, what are you doing? Guys, type in the chat now or press the button to join. Julio, tell me, do you see the button to request to join the stream as a guest? Tú puedes ver el botón para unirte al stream. Es que quiero hacer debate. Okay, so there's no button. That's a problem. Right. How do we set it up so that people can join? Find guests. Find drop-in guests. Okay, so it's currently set so that I have to invite people. Let's see if I can change that. Yeah, type in the chat if you want to join. And I'll be able to invite you on and you can join and stream with me and debate, should life exist or not. I'm good. I'm just such a noob at TikTok. I'm trying to find how to make it so that people can press the button to request to join the stream and debate. Oh, yeah, Julio, you can see, I think I sent you an invitation, but I want to make it so that everyone can just press a button and request to join. I don't know how to do it. I'm such a noob at TikTok. Let's see. In the meantime, if anyone does want to join and come on live and debate, then let me know. All right, what about now? So today we're talking about extinctionism. Should life exist? Should life continue being forced to exist? You know, nobody asked to be here. And the terrible things that happen to the victims of this cycle are beyond imagination. They're so bad. I'm trying to do a stream, but I'm such a fucking noob at this that I don't even know how to invite people on. But I'd like to do some debates, answer some questions, get some, face-to-face conversations going. If anyone knows how to do it, let me know. Ooh. Okay, let's have a look. Got some information coming in. Unrise. So, should life exist? The answer is no. Why? It seems kind of confusing at first, but then people just assume and suppose that life should exist and that it's unquestionable. But that's wrong. Life only exists because every life is forced to exist without consent, and then the terrible things that happen as a result are so bad that it has to be stopped, basically. So extinction isn't about killing, it's about preventing suffering. Most of the victims that extinctionists want to help are in the future. Talking about billions of years. Now, most people also tend to think of, themselves and their family and humans and stuff, but, most of the victims that extinctionists want to help are actually animals. Farmed animals, wild animals in particular, are the most numerous population on the planet, and they have the least protection, the worst suffering, and it's pretty easy to understand, really. Can you, just imagine for a moment that you're a baby animal, you've been born in nature somewhere in a forest, you don't understand anything, you don't know what's going on, and before you know it, you've got several vicious animals eating you alive. Is that something you would want to experience? Probably not. So why should anyone be forced to exist and suffer? It's wrong. It's the most wrong thing that could possibly happen. It's very difficult to even imagine something worse than forcing life to exist into the most extreme suffering possible. It doesn't really get much worse than that. That's why the pro-extinction movement is working to prevent all of this suffering and all of this tragedy, extreme victimization, horrors, terrors. So this stuff is just going to continue for billions of years if we don't put an end to this madness. The planet would be much better off without all of this suffering, without any animals, a suffering-free world, a suffering-free planet, and that's only possible with extinction. So unless you don't care about extreme victimization, babies being tortured, then you have to support extinction unless you're just selfish and immoral. And, people say, what about the balance? What about the good things? What about the people enjoying their lives? But they're the top 1%, basically. They're the lucky, the elites, and effectively the oppressors. They're saying, well, my life is fine, so everyone else can just burn and suffer. That's the definition of immorality and, bad things, right? The only bad thing in the world is suffering, right? You can't name something else that is bad other than suffering. And, we're not talking about stubbing your toe, which funnily enough is the example everyone uses. And you can't really make that comparison because, we're talking about babies being eaten alive. Just imagine for a minute that your mother is going to be eaten alive over the course of several hours. It's probably not something you would want to happen, right? So extinction is about extending that empathy for others and not just ourselves and our closest ones. It's universal empathy. It's stopping the system of tribalism. All of these countries, all of these different races, different languages, etc. People use all of this as an excuse not to care about others because they feel like, well, if we care about everyone, then it's basically communism and we'll all suffer and burn. No, being selfish isn't a good thing. Being, wanting fairness for all is a good thing. But people are against the idea of fairness for some reason. They feel like it's a bad thing. Some people are even convinced that, if we have an unfair system, it's better because it creates innovation, creativity, it's pressure towards bigger and better things. And, technically, yes, exploitation of victims and suffering can make things better for the lucky ones at the very top, but you're building privilege for the top 1% lucky ones at the expense of the 99% who are burning, being eaten alive, rotting. And most people just don't care, which is awful. It's quite an animalistic way of thinking, really, to say, I just need to think about myself and that's it. Or I just need to think about my family and that's it. Extinctionists are people that have said, right, it's very simple how it starts for a lot of us. It's like, we get a letter in the post saying, it's time to vote. It's time to vote for a political party. You need to do something. The world needs the country needs your vote, right? And then you look at the parties and you're like, these are garbage, these are terrible, none of their proposals are going to do anything to stop all of the war and violence and hatred going around the world. So, the entirety of the system is built on suffering, hatred, violence, selfishness, trying to do the best for yourself at the expense of others. And, people glorify that like it's some kind of good thing. But that is just the system of irrationality and animalistic thinking that we live in. And it's not because humans are bad people, it's because they're animals. You can't convince a cat to be a good person. If you put a mouse in front of it, it's going to kill the mouse. You can't convince a monkey to be a good person because it doesn't, can't even speak, can't understand concepts like that. And so humans have made the mistake of thinking that they're no longer subject to animalistic ways of thinking. But that is a big mistake. Actually, humans are just animals, and you only have to look around the world to understand that. There's war, violence, hatred, sexism, racism, stealing, criminals. It's just pure chaos, and the amount of bad things going on is endless, uncountable, impossible to fully comprehend. The bad experiences going on right now are shocking, and people like to just not think about it. But if you do start thinking about all of these terrible things are happening. What should we do about it? Should we just let them suffer? Okay, no, I don't like that idea. So, what's the best thing we can do? Which is something people don't ask themselves, right? Now, extinctionists like myself, we did ask that. We did say, right, the world is fucked up. What should we do about it? I don't like these political parties. I don't want to vote for Trump. I don't want to vote for Trump. So who can I vote for? And, there's no one really that's a good person you can vote for because they're effectively just monkeys, right? Violent, angry monkeys. So there's, that is the problem. And it's very clear and obvious. Yeah, I do want to do a debate, guys. I'm trying to invite people on. I'm not very good at using TikTok, so I would love to get someone on to talk. If someone can tell me how I can activate the setting for people to be able to request to join the stream, I will do it right now. I just don't know how to do it. But yeah, so, from the start of life, it was all about eating others and taking stuff for yourself, right? And that is just the same system that we live in. Just because we're now a certain type of human doesn't mean that that's stopped happening. Again, you just have to look around the world at all the terrible things that are happening, the immorality, amorality, selfishness, all of these terrible things. And there's, can you point to a single thing in the world that gives you any kind of hope that it's going to get better? I would say no, right? So, if there was some sort of organization that said we're going to fix the world, I'd be behind it. But there isn't, right? And fixing the world, even the utopia that people kind of sometimes think about, what kind of utopia is it if you don't do extinction for animals, if you allow them to continue being forced into existence wrongly and unfairly, and to
Hello.
suffer? Hello.
Oh, sorry. I hope my accent isn't too bad,
No, it's
so you
okay.
can understand everything. All right. My question is how you guys, so I talked to some of you guys on Reddit, um, and I'm an antinatalist myself. So there's some connection between the two ideologies, I think. I just can't really understand the how radical it's turning out to be to focus on the complete extinction of every living being. I think the first priority would be to save the human race through antinatalism and not the other part of nature, if you know what I mean, through complete extinction.
So I made a post about this yesterday. Antinatalists have, they can see that life is a bad thing and they don't want to put a child into it, but they don't extend that empathy to others, right? So they're happy for animals to just keep suffering the same thing that they don't want to do themselves. They won't lift a finger to stop it. So they've recognized the problem, but they don't want an actual solution. They want to solve it just for themselves and not for anyone else. So antinatalism is actually a bad thing. For every human that exists and is born and lives their life, thousands, maybe tens or even hundreds of thousands of wild animals will be prevented from existing because of resources. Each human has, that they have a car, a house, Amazon, all of these, an insane amount of resources. Essentially, water is being taken up, land is being taken up that would otherwise be taken up by, many, many, many animals. So essentially, by being antinatalist, you're transferring the suffering to thousands of other creatures, which is really wrong. And you're also condemning and dooming not just animals to infinite suffering for the rest of time, but humans as well. Antinatalists are opting out of the system instead of fighting the system. So it's saying, I'm just not going to be a part of it, but I won't. I know that the system is wrong, but I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm going to allow the system to keep going. That's the problem with antinatalism, and it just doesn't make sense. You can't voluntarily get every human to stop reproducing. Tens of thousands of years from now, there'll still be, Muslims and Christians, reproducing and causing suffering. So it's just a completely, nonsensical idea, basically.
Okay, you said fighting the system, right? So so antinatalists try to fight the system. Oh, sorry, one cruelty of life, and for some reason it's still selfish. Oh, yeah. So I would kind of disagree because you said that antinatalists just clink out of the system. And in tens of thousands of years or millions of years, people will still reproduce. I think it's actually, I don't know how much practice you do, but as far as I'm concerned, in both movements, the practice is pretty low. Because even if we get the people through extinctionism to think about the problems or through antinatalism, so life is suffering, that's why we shouldn't create, or that's why we should stop existing. I don't think it would make a change in that segment, so you can't really say that antinatalism is too selfish, in my opinion, because you clink yourself out of the system, but extinctionism does the same, just through saying that we do the practice, we try to convince the other people to join our movement, but really just do the same as antinatalists.
So in your mind, extinctionism and antinatalism has literally no difference. Is that right?
No. Of course, there's a difference, but the extinctionism movement calls themselves the people that really try to do the practice or that do it in real life. And
What do you mean do it in like the practice exactly? So I mean,
for
our
example,
goal is
protest or going on the street, talking to people and stuff like that. I think there are more extinctionists that do these kinds of practices than there are antinatalists. That's what I mean through doing practice. And what I've noticed for myself, I don't know if it's true, so you can correct me if I'm wrong in that segment, um, is that extinctionists all most of the time look down on antinatalists due to the fact that they think that they have a more higher moral ground, if you understand what I mean. So because they care about animal lives, antinatalists don't do that thing, that they can change the system in some miraculous way, which I haven't really understood yet, because real action comes through making a change for yourself. If a lot of people do a change for themselves, the collective also changes, which I
But
haven't really noticed through
that's the myth that
extinctionism.
you don't understand. Like, you know, you so for example, with slavery, they didn't get 100% of the population to agree, right?
Mm,
They forced the change, and that's always been the case. So Steve makes the perfect point. If we rolled back the laws on slavery today and just made it legal, you can bet your ass there would be lots of people just going out and grabbing some black people and making them slaves, right? So you can't just convince people to be good people. You have to force the system, basically.
So, what would the force look like through extinctionism? Because you would have to force people to stop existing, and I don't really know how that would work.
So basically, our plan is to grow the movement to make it possible to beat the system. Antinatalists are kind of doing the opposite of that. So, like the main problem is that all humans, or the vast majority of humans, are biologically incapable of morality and selflessness, right? Like I was saying earlier in the stream, they're effectively selfish animals, right? They're not intelligent enough to do the right thing because their brain is just too small to focus on anything else other than tribalistic, selfish survival, right? That's what nature literally programmed them to do because it was superior for evolution and survival of the fittest and propagation of the species. So like the machine of life realized if we just make people incapable of being selfless, incapable of empathy, then they'll just focus on stupid shit like having loads of children and just being selfish and not questioning whether it's right or wrong. Okay? So the vast majority of humans are not capable of doing the right thing. Now, extinctionists have started kind of popping up as exceptions to this rule. So yeah, people say it seems like a fantasy that you'll ever cause extinction. No one's ever going to agree with it. But actually, there's lots of things that we can do about that. So, for instance, when we say we're growing the movement, it's not like veganism where we just convert someone to veganism and that's it. We're actually an organization, so we're all like working together as a team effectively. There's hierarchy, everyone's sort of in the same group, and it's a bit like a charity almost, if you will, an organization. I don't believe antinatalists have that. So it could be like a million-year project potentially to overthrow pro-life and pro-suffering society. And there's lots of ways that that could be achieved over a million years or 1,000 years, however long it takes. For example, Steve, who created the movement, he is donating sperm to get more empathetic and rational, intelligent genetics out there into the population. So people that need sperm so they can have a baby, instead of having another selfish asshole, there's a chance that they'll get his sperm and it'll be a potentially rational and empathetic person who will want to do the right thing. So that's one very small example, right?
Okay. This kind of sounds, or what I've noticed when talking to extinctionists, because it pretty much is the same all of the time. That there's a difference between, of course, there is between non-extinctionists and extinctionists, and
Yep.
extinctionists always take the moral high ground for themselves because they've noticed the suffering around the world, and try to talk down on other movements like antinatalism. There are hierarchies and there are also movements, and these people are for sure that they can't change a thing in their lifetime. What you said, long-term goals in a million years, tens of thousands of years, but in the far future.
Well, it might not be the far future, right? I mean, technology is advancing exponentially. So there's lots of physical theories which are quite sound on how we could cause vacuum decay, which would create a ripple effect and destroy the universe. But there's infinite ways essentially to beat the system and end all suffering. And you can only access and start creating those ways if you get enough intelligent people together and working on this project, essentially. So the more intelligent extinctionists we have together in the organization, the more powerful the organization will be, and the more capable we'll be of finding new ways and developing new projects that can actually lead to success.
I totally understand it's the same for other movements like antinatalism, but my point is, or the difference that I make, that, like I said, I noticed between extinctionists, antinatalists, all of these kind of movements, is that extinctionists always think they're on the moral high ground, talk down on other groups, just like you repeated.
What's your point then?
Sorry?
What's your point?
That I don't think that you can make a goal or reach a goal if you go through life with this kind of mindset. If you just say that other movements try to keep the system, try to empower the system instead of ripping it off, destroying it.
We have to make the oppressors feel uncomfortable, right? That's what every movement has done in history. They've spoken out against the oppressors, spoken out against things that are wrong.
Of course.
So that's what we're doing.
Antinatalists are not the oppressors, in my opinion.
They are to animals, though.
To animals, I don't see a real problem with that. Just like I said,
so if humanity goes extinct tomorrow, animals will burn and rot and suffer and just be miserable for billions of years, right? So that's discrimination. It's wrong. It's evil. It's irrational. It's saying their suffering is worth less. So it's disgusting.
So you think, or in your opinion, for me to understand the mindset,
do you think animals are worth less?
Yes. Yeah.
Why?
Beings with a lower consciousness than us humans are worthless, of course. Yeah.
So if I torture a cat, it doesn't matter.
No, I never said that. I just said that they're worth less. That doesn't mean that they deserve to die, or that they deserve to get tortured. But nature, of course, if you stop the suffering from one...
But that is what you're saying. You're saying that they do deserve to get tortured.
No, I just said that
they're worth less. That's disgusting.
That doesn't... Let me please finish. That doesn't mean that they deserve to get suffered. It just means that they are not worth as much as humans are.
But you are saying that they deserve to suffer, right?
No, just like I said.
But you said you don't care about animals, they're worth less, and fuck animals, let's just think about humans. So yes, fuck animals, saying they deserve to suffer.
Fuck animals doesn't mean when I say that they are worth less than humans.
Oh, bro, you're just disgusting, right? Just get out of the street. You are saying fuck animals.
Moral
superiority. Disgusting.
I never said fuck animals. Never said fuck animals. It's the same moral superiority.
It doesn't mean you're not implying it.
It's the same moral superiority that I talked about.
We are morally superior. You're saying fuck animals.
I never said fuck animals.
Matter, and just let them suffer for all of time.
When did I say fuck animals?
You implied it.
I said they are worth less than
humans. Fuck animals. They're worthless.
Doesn't mean. Please let me finish. There's a clear difference.
I don't want you to finish. I want you to leave, bro. Your opinions are disgusting.
Because you think that you're on the moral high ground.
Of course I have the moral high ground. You're the one saying fuck animals, let them suffer. What is that apart from a moral high ground?
All right. I said animals are worth less than humans. That doesn't mean that they deserve to suffer. There's a clear difference. Of course, if I say an ant is worth less than a cat, that doesn't mean that an ant deserves to suffer.
Why are they worth less?
Because, just like I said, there's a difference between the consciousness between the two individuals.
What difference?
A human can feel more and think more than a cat can. Of course.
How do you know?
Because we did scientific studies on it. It's
So
true science, of course.
okay. So let's see. You stub your toe,
Yeah.
but an animal gets eaten alive.
Huh?
Has its guts ripped out. Who suffers more?
Huh? If I get my guts
You
ripped
suffer more
out,
because you're a
if
human, right? That's just
no,
stupid, bro.
I didn't say that. Please let me finish. If my guts get ripped out, of course I suffer more than a cat does when their
How
guts
do you
get
know?
ripped out. Because I have way more nerves, I have way more consciousness of my situation. I would know what it means to die. An animal has its animalistic nature. It doesn't know the meaning of death. It just knows that it
So
hurts.
basically,
That's why it
you're just
screams.
focusing on ways to discriminate against animals. That is disgusting.
No. Okay, that's disgusting. It's the same moral high ground argument I brought up in the beginning. What I said is that there's a difference
Oh,
between a
dude, the moral high
consciousness.
ground. If a rapist says, stop taking the moral high ground and saying rape is wrong, I'll tell them to fuck off, as I want you to fuck
So
off
you're
out of the
comparing.
stream.
All right, you're comparing me with a rapist because I'm saying that a cat has lesser consciousness than a
Yes.
human has. All right, that's interesting. Why? Can you explain that?
Yeah, and you know what? Slave owners said that black people have less consciousness, and so
Black
fuck them. They can suffer.
black people
That's
are worth
exactly
more
what you're
than
doing.
cats.
It's disgusting.
Black people are worth more than cats, of course. In
Oh man,
every
yeah, it's just
individual worth.
tribalism, right? Let's find a way. Let's find a way to justify suffering. Let's say they're worth less, so they can suffer. Fuck them. It's just disgusting, bro.
That's why we should make a change. That's why we should make a change in the human race and not the animal race, firstly, because we suffer more than they do, and they will suffer for each and every time.
We don't suffer more than animals do. We don't suffer more than animals do.
We
I
do,
can
of
prove
course.
you wrong right now.
Okay, all
There's
right.
8 billion humans. There's 8 billion humans.
Yep.
How many animals are there?
Way more.
Yeah. And
Of course.
who has better conditions?
We do.
Right. So what the fuck are you talking about?
Only because I agree with these points doesn't mean that, for example, when a human, if I cut off your limbs or if I cut off the limbs of a cat, the human will of course suffer way more due to the reasons I just explained in the beginning. Just because there are more animals than humans doesn't mean that they suffer more in any way.
That's just gross, bro, honestly.
Why? You made the same point.
What a dumbass. All right, Luke, are you there? Do you want to come on? There you go. How's it going, Luke? Yeah, you're on camera. Yakshimash. I think your microphone is off, Luke. Let's have a look. Oh,
all right, just kicking me out doesn't solve the problem, I think.
Yeah, but we don't really care about oppressors that say, fuck animals, let them suffer.
I didn't say fuck animals, just like explained in the beginning. There's a clear difference between
You've spent the entire stream finding ways to discriminate against animals and to say that their suffering is worth less, dude. It's fucking stupid.
I tried understanding your point in the beginning because I called myself an antinatalist, and I think that's much more
20 minutes
rational.
Or whatever, just finding ways to encourage people not to care about animals.
I did not. I explained why I think that humans are worth more than animals, and why we should firstly focus on them, on this human race.
Yeah,
than on
you
animal
want
race.
humans to go extinct so animals have no one to help them. That's fucking stupid.
Animals won't be helped if you just kill them in any kind of way for the extinctionist movement because you think that they aren't suffering anymore. If we bomb the whole planet or do anything else and just delete any individual in that kind of way.
Do what?
Delete any kind of individual in that way.
So you think extinction is about killing?
No, it's of course. How else would you in any kind of way
so you think
get the goal?
The main thing is we want to kill. That's what you think.
No, you think you have the moral high ground because you have this kind of thought that we get every individual to stop existing, or just by not giving birth to them.
High ground because we have the intelligence to do the right thing.
Okay, that's the same thing I just mentioned. You kicked me out because you think you have the moral high ground over me when I say.
Because you're wasting time just discriminating against animals and saying that they deserve to suffer more than humans do.
I just said that they can't comprehend suffering just as we do, and we suffer more because of it.
And you can comprehend suffering. The guy saying animals should suffer can comprehend suffering. I don't
more than
think
animals.
So.
It's a scientific fact. I can feel suffering more than animals can.
But are you the one being ripped apart by several predators at the same time? No. So
No.
you're not suffering more than animals are. You're just a fucking idiot.
Only because of physical circumstances doesn't mean that these animals are suffering more than
Let's
we are.
focus on reality, not hypotheticals.
It's not a hypothetical.
It is.
In
You're not
in
being
which
ripped
kind of
apart by
way?
animals, right? So that's a hypothetical, okay? Let's focus on reality. Animals are suffering the worst fucking things, much worse than your privileged elite ass.
You have absolutely no idea of my life. Nothing. You
I
don't
know
even
enough about it to know that you think it's okay to say some should suffer and some shouldn't, and that they're worth
I think
less,
the human
in the
race
same
should
way that
stop
slave
suffering.
owners
Yeah.
did.
No, I'm not the same as a slave owner when I say that a cat has not the same life expectancy or any kind of way to endure suffering as humans
Again,
do.
you're just spending time finding ways to discriminate against animals. It's
Then make an
fucking
argument out of
stupid.
it why humans,
You've
instead
spent
of just
15, 20
instead of
minutes just
telling
saying animals suffer
5
less, so
minutes,
fuck 'em.
5 minutes, because you don't make an argument out of me saying that the human race should go extinct before animal races do, and we should focus on said task instead of just trying to stop the life of
The
every.
logic is we should make the human race go extinct and then help the animals to go extinct.
No,
You're
I
fucking
think you.
brain dead, bro. You're
I never said
fucking
that.
brain
You're not listening.
dead.
You're not listening.
I
The
am
only thing you're
listening.
doing is
You're not thinking.
I didn't
That's the
say that.
difference.
The only thing I said is that we should focus on the human race. Nature will exist
Yes.
in either way. Nature will exist in every
Right. So
universe.
now the honest evil version is coming out, right?
Evil version.
Fuck nature,
Which kind of
fuck animals. Let's just focus on humans. That's what you're saying.
what? Just like in the beginning,
What?
I told
Nature will
you.
exist either way, so fuck them, right? That's what you're saying.
I said that the human race should go extinct before animal race could do in any kind of way, because said animals will exist in each possible universe. You can't delete every ant, every amoeba, or every
So
kind
now
of
you're
different
talking
animal.
about the multiverse, right?
No.
Well,
Just
where's the
this
evidence
word.
of the multiverse, bro?
It's just a
Each
metaphor.
possible universe. Where's
It's
the
just-
evidence that there's more
Of
than one
cour-
universe?
Of course, I didn't mean it just as metaphysically
You're
as
talking nonsense, bro. Let's
I'm not
let
talking
someone
nonsense.
else join the stream who doesn't talk as much
In
nonsense.
which way am I kind of
Okay.
nonsense? The only thing I said is that you won't.
Okay, let's
make
say
an-
let's run down the nonsense that you're saying. You're saying
Alright.
animals
Make an
deserve to
argument
suffer more
against
than
it.
humans. You're saying
Make an argument.
We'll start with human extinction and then we'll cause animal
I
extinction.
didn't say that. I said that
You're saying
animals.
there's other universes
listening
where they
to
might
me.
exist, so fuck
You're
them.
not listening,
It's brain dead shit, dude.
and you're not listening. The only thing you're doing is
I
calling
am
me brain
listening.
dead.
You're not
No.
thinking.
Did you know what I said before you interrupted me and just turned my entire point against me, even though I didn't say it?
There's only so much stupid discrimination and
All right, so you didn't.
suffering advocacy
So
that
you didn't.
anyone can take.
You clearly didn't. What I said
Yeah,
is
right,
that,
dude, sure.
of course,
Yes,
the only
Martin.
thing I said is that said individuals or cats or animals in any kind of way will exist even if we try to stop giving birth to them. I don't think
Why?
that you want to kill animals because it's
Prove it.
nature.
Explain that.
Nature.
So you're saying
In any kind of way, if nature exists, animals will exist.
just saying the word nature isn't an argument, bro. That's stupidity.
Why is it stupidity? Make an argument against it. If nature exists, animals will exist forever.
So we get rid of nature then.
Okay. All right. Oh. So you get rid of nature. So through killing ourselves, we will reach extinctionism. If we
No,
destroy
bro.
nature, we destroy our whole life.
Prove it.
What's there to prove? We need oxygen to breathe. We need food that grows on fields. We need.
So it's not about destroying nature. It's about destroying
That's just what you said. I just said
It's
that
about-
nature, if nature
Dude,
exists,
shut up. Shut up. It's
It's
about
not the
removing
same.
the conditions for suffering to arise, right? And for life to
nature.
be forced into existence.
it's nature.
Yes, it's nature,
Yeah.
dude, and there is
So-
something we can do about it. Humans already
Destroying
control
nature.
animal population. No,
So the thing we can do-
prevent life from developing and suffering.
You
It's
have a
about
forest.
prevention, not
You have a
killing.
forest. You have a forest. How do you prevent that animals will exist in said forest?
Say again?
How will you prevent animals from existing in the forest?
I mean, that's already something that's happening, Look
How?
at deforestation.
deforestation. So you're destroying nature, just like I said in the beginning. So you're killing the planet through not so that the planet can't create new beings.
Yeah, so we need
Yeah.
to remove our dependency on animals, and make it so that it's possible to continue without them, so that humanity can go on to try and help end suffering and prevent suffering for other life in the universe if possible.
So the goal is accelerationism, or no? Okay, but we need to destroy nature, just like you said, to prevent
It's not about
individuals or
destroying
animals
nature, dude. It's not
It's a
destroying
part.
nature, okay?
You need to destroy nature to destroy animal livestock.
No, dude, shut up. You have no idea what you're talking about.
You have no idea. Make an argument against it.
I am, okay?
What?
So,
Say the argument.
okay, so like I said, humans already control animal populations, right?
That's it.
So, no, humans already control animal populations. That's a perfectly fantastic example of how humans control nature, essentially. So it's not about destroy nature. It's more like control nature, make it so that there's a suffering-free world, remove our dependency on animals, remove the system which forces animals to exist and suffer. And then if we, if there's good reason to think that we should try and do the same with cosmic life, because it's, there's life here, there could be life suffering, needing our help elsewhere, then that would be our mission. So potentially humanity should continue for thousands of years, if not more. Now, if we, conclusively, exhaustively conclude that there's nothing we can do about space life, then that would, sort of be the end of it. And then we could close the door behind ourselves and make sure that there's no more suffering for humans. But yeah, ideally we start with animals, then space life. And then finally, the only ones capable of helping other life should have to suffer to that end, humans. But if there's no more reason for humans, if there's no other life that we can help, then yeah, we could then focus on human suffering and making sure that that is completely eradicated as well.
So you're saying through stopping animals so stopping them from suffering through extinctionism, is possible through preventing the livestock in each ecosystem. That's just what you told me, right?
Well, look, think about it this way. 1,000 years ago...
I'm asking you. Just yes or no.
Dude, shut the fuck up and let me answer. So think
I tried
about
the
it
same
this way.
and you interrupted me too. You did exactly the same.
Okay, well, why don't you just fuck off then? So now that that moron is gone, I can answer that question, right? Wait, what was the question? It was so stupid I can't even remember it. Okay, yeah, I remember now. So he was saying, how the hell do we do extinction? I'm so stupid, I can't figure it out. Well, that's what the movement exists for, to make it possible. 1,000 years ago, as I was trying to explain to that moron, it would have been completely impossible to do any sort of extinction, right? It would have been a gargantuan, impossible, insane idea, right? But in today's day, it's already much more possible, much easier. Humanity has already made several species of animals go extinct, like completely extinct. Now, that's without even like trying to do it in an ethical way and in an organized and serious way. So as time goes on and the years progress and the organization gets bigger and more powerful and develops, extinction will just get easier and easier every single day. The current pro-life society is developing technology, science. They're doing it for like selfish reasons so that they can do, more animal testing and more torturing of animals and things, horrible things like that. But all of the science, it's building up and developing. Technology is advancing exponentially. It's very simple, really. Deforestation, for example, is already happening, and that is preventing, animals from coming into existence and suffering. Think about like an Amazon factory, okay? There's, apart from the poor humans that are working there, there's not really many animals being forced to exist and suffer there, right? Now, we're not saying cover the world in data centers, maybe, but the point is that it's completely possible and feasible, and it's getting easier every day. We can definitely achieve a suffering-free planet, It's just a matter of engineering, science, and technology. And yeah, I mean, the guy's a complete idiot, basically. All right, would anyone else like to come on and discuss extinctionism? Please say so in the chat, or I don't know if there's a button because I'm so bad at TikTok, but yeah, let's have someone else on if anybody else would like to talk. Does anyone else have questions? Josh is asking, what is the debate about? It's about whether or not life should be forced to exist and suffer for billions of more years. There's such extreme suffering. Baby animals are tortured to death, eaten alive. It's not something you would want to happen to yourself or anyone you would know. So obviously we should prevent that. It's the empathetic, it's the moral thing to do. And there's also no pleasure in this world that can ever justify, torturing someone. I'll give you a very quick and easy example. If someone offers me £1 million and all I have to do is rape a baby to death, I'm going to decline that. I'm going to say no, thank you. Okay, because there's no pleasure that I can buy with that £1 million that justifies such an awful thing happening. But these awful things are happening, and they will continue to happen forever unless it's prevented. Now, you could argue that, we can reduce the risk for humans of that happening, but there's free will, right? People can go and do it, right? If I want to go and do something terrible right now, I could do it. I could walk into the street and stab someone. Nothing's going to stop that from happening. So all of this freedom is essentially just freedom to cause suffering. And that is what happens. So for wild animals and farmed animals, it's much worse and much easier to understand, because 99.9%, literally 99.9%, if not more, of life born in nature, in the wild, dies a cruel and painful death during childhood. Just think of a human baby being born in a forest, right? It's going to be, with no clothes and no technology, right? Nothing, okay? It's going to fucking suffer and die horrifically. Now, if you put 1 million human babies in the wild, maybe some of them will survive, maybe. But that is literally the case already. That's a perfect comparison for reality. 99.9% of life born into the wild does die, right? Which is this. That's why you wouldn't want to be in the wild as a baby. You wouldn't want anyone to be. Just take off all your clothes, take your shoes off and your socks off, and go and walk into a forest and try and live there for the rest of your life with nothing. Okay, no clothes, no shelter, no phone, no socks, no shoes. Okay, no lighter, no torch. How long is it going to be before you're slowly devoured alive? Your guts are coming out because wolves are eating them in front of your very eyes. It's just absolute horrors, essentially. And morons like that guy want it to continue. It's truly disgusting. Next question. A cat is worth less than a human being. Oh, it's the same moron. Forget that comment. Disgusting kind of comments. Trying to say that some deserve to suffer and others don't. I mean, the pro-extinction movement is all about non-discrimination. So, just because someone is a cat or a monkey or a human, we will say that their suffering deserves to be prevented just as much, right? Now, the only difference and sort of nuance to that is, how to achieve this practically for all. So, you do have to cause some suffering to end all suffering. Otherwise, I walk outside and I, step on an ant or something. You can't achieve zero suffering for all in such a crazy world like this without doing any harm or suffering. It's just practical impossibility. So yeah, it's just a question of how do we optimally work towards extinction. What's the right way to do it? What's the best way to do it? Yeah, would anyone else like to join and ask any questions or debate? And hopefully you won't be someone that spends 20 minutes saying that animals deserve to suffer and they can go fuck themselves. Yeah, honestly, that guy really pissed me off. Okay, I mean, I don't think we've got anyone else coming on, and my live stream has been heavily restricted. This is the problem with TikTok, unfortunately. I've got 2 restrictions just on the live stream. Who knows how that's going to affect my account? Your live stream contains themes that some will find uncomfortable, so we've restricted you. Harassment and bullying. I mean, yeah, appeal. Ugh. Do I even want to appeal that? Probably not gonna be successful. Oh, hey Shaba, how you doing? Would you like to join as a guest? Join us on the stream. Join us and ask questions about extinctionism. Yeah, everyone is welcome to join, ask questions, give us your opinion. All right, well, I'm going to end the stream here before my account gets restricted even more. Unless anyone else wants to join and debate, I'll give it one last minute. Type in the chat now if you'd like to join. Do you have questions or opinions about, should life continue to be forced to exist and suffer? How'd you like my green screen, by the way? It's pretty cool, right? Check out our website, proextinction.com. We've just recently made it. It's got a frequently asked questions page, manifesto, meet the team. It's also got a page about the history of the movement. Thoughts on accelerationism? That's a great question. I don't actually know too much about accelerationism. My very shallow understanding, I think it's about making the world worse so that people kind of wake up and and realize they need to do something about it. No, that's a terrible idea if you ask me. I don't think that you can, make people better people by torturing them like that or by making worse conditions for them. I mean, just look at, Africa, basically they've already got accelerationism and it's not helping them. Okay, that's the base belief of accelerationism, right? Yeah, but there's no evidence that it works, right? What about nuclear accelerationism? I'm not really sure what that means, but I can tell you that extinctionists are against nuclear weapons. I mean, maybe it could somehow be useful, but we don't think it's a realistic way to cause extinction or to end suffering. It's going to take a lot more engineering and science and technology and thinking than just throw some nukes, okay? There's no way of debating with that moron. Yeah, he got called a moron and kicked out, as he should have been, right? Yeah, if you think that animals deserve to suffer and that it's fine if they get tortured, then yeah, you should get called out for it. Absolutely. And these people that say animals should suffer and who cares if animals get tortured, they like to do it in a polite way. They're like, but I think animals should be tortured to death. And if you say, like, what the fuck are you talking about, you moron? Then they'll be like, why are you so mean to me? Oh, God, it's just disgusting. Yeah, if you provoke someone, of course they're going to react. My dad does it all the time. He'll be like, you're worthless. You're trash. And I'll be like, what the fuck did you say? Yeah, I know you said that we suffer more than animals, but I already debunked you. You're not suffering more than an animal that's getting eaten alive by stubbing your toe. You're just a moron. So, yeah, you're just an evil, suffering defender, bro. No debunk, right? Did you get eaten alive today? No, didn't think so. No. didn't think so, mate. So yeah, debunked. Animals do suffer more than humans. I mean, the thing is, like, humans are more capable of dealing with the suffering as well, right? They can kind of come up with proper coping strategies. Animals can't do that. Physical pain, LeMayo. Oh, right. Animals never suffer emotionally, huh? Bro, your ignorance is truly astonishing. You don't think... So this guy just said, oh, animals being eaten alive is just pain. It's just physical pain. Can you seriously try and say that animals aren't experiencing emotional suffering while they're being eaten alive? I mean, what kind of insanity is going on in your small brain? Yeah, animals suffer more emotionally when they're being eaten alive, when they're watching their family being eaten alive. This is something that you're never going to have to suffer because you're a lucky, privileged, elite asshole who's saying, let animals suffer and let them get eaten alive. You're the exact same. If we were back in the 1800s, you would be saying slaves don't suffer, right? They don't have emotions like we do. They're not capable of suffering like we are. They're worth less than we are. It's the exact same thing. It's just discrimination. It's wrong. It's evil. We should work towards non-discriminatory ending of all suffering for everyone. They feel the pain, but not yet. Dude, literally listen to yourself. You're literally just spending every single comment trying to justify animal suffering. And the crazy thing is that you don't even realize that you're doing it. You've literally just sent like 20 comments saying animals suffer less. What's your point, bro? I've said that you're trying to justify and say, let them suffer, and you're saying you're not. Of course you are. You've just said 20 comments saying animals, deserve to suffer more than us because they suffer less, in your insane opinion. It's just disgusting. Okay. Consuming substances featured in this live could harm your health. Maybe someone's reported me for being on drugs or something. The TikTok bloody policies are absolutely insane. I can't make any different argument in any way if that's 75% of your ideology. I don't know what you're talking about, bro. You're just literally an animal hater and an animal abuser. You see an animal getting tortured and you think, it's fine, right? Yeah, that is what you're saying. You're not saying, you know what, you're right. Animals don't deserve to suffer. We should make sure that they don't suffer. So animal extinction is the biggest part of your ideology. Right, I think I understand what you're saying. You're saying, why should we focus on animals when our suffering is more? Well, like I said, humans don't suffer more. Humans have incredible conditions compared to wild animals. In like heaven-like conditions compared to wild animals. So just because in your silly mind a human could maybe be tortured in theory more than an animal, right? But not in reality. You're using that as a justification for letting animals get to suffer. And also, like, what if it only takes 1,000 years for us to help animals and prevent all of their suffering, right? That's going to prevent billions of years of more suffering for them. So any amount of suffering that humans will face in the mission to help others will be an absolute drop in the ocean in comparison, right? This guy is saying we shouldn't lift a finger to prevent billions of years of suffering because it might hurt my finger. He can go and fuck himself. Yeah, he is a moron. And I don't care if TikTok bans me for it. Like, I will call people out for saying that animals should suffer. Right, would anyone else like to join the live? Maybe someone a bit smarter than that guy. Does anyone have a smart opinion? What do you think about animal suffering? Have you ever thought about animal suffering? Have you also been conditioned like this crazy person to think that animal suffering is acceptable or somehow worth less. Yeah, let's see. Does anyone want to join the stream? Does anyone have an opinion? Smart opinion is the one agreeing with you. The smart opinion is not agreeing with us. It's agreeing with the idea that we should end all child rape, end all abuse, all victimization, all extreme suffering, forced existence, all of these terrible things that you're in favor of continuing, right? It's just gross, bro. Get a brain. Right, would anyone else like to join the stream? The stream is now open for smarter people to join. Drop a comment in the chat, or if there is a join button, press it. Let's have a serious conversation. I mean, I'll tell you another crazy thing about this guy's opinion, right? Is that he's saying that, we should discriminate, right? He's encouraging discrimination. You're not going to solve any problems with that kind of disgusting, immoral mindset, right? That's the same reason why veganism is never going to change the world. They're saying, fuck everyone else. Let's not even stop animal suffering. Let's just stop them being eaten by humans. That's it. They're trying to help a tiny fraction of the sufferers. So how is everyone going to get on board with that? They're not. Only a completely universal, non-discriminatory movement and organization for preventing all suffering for everyone is going to be enough, right? And I'll tell you why. Because selfish people like that guy, they don't want to do the right thing, right? They don't care about doing the right thing. And, they will be put off very easily from doing the right thing for others, okay? So think about it this way. If you have infinite victims depending on you, which we do, right? Then you're going to be much more motivated to help them in a good way, a correct way, a smart way. If you're just trying to say, motivate people to help a small number of victims and you're literally telling them to ignore all the other victims, then you're encouraging irrationality, encouraging discrimination, and encouraging suffering in its continuation. It's wrong, evil. So someone has joined, Black and Gray.
Sup?
Hello. How's it going?
I'm doing fine. How about you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, do you have any questions? What would you like to talk about?
Yes, so I'm not here to debate. I'm just here to hear your reasoning.
Great.
Why do you think? Do you believe that life should stop existing? And if so, why?
Yeah, so the thing is, it's only optimism bias that makes people think that life is a good thing. For over 99.9% of life born on this planet, they're born into extreme conditions and they die a painful death during childhood, never reaching adulthood. So for the vast majority of life on this planet, it's a living nightmare, a living hell. But people, turn a blind eye to it. So extinctionists believe that life deserves better, that only 100% safety from extreme suffering and being forced to exist non-consensually is acceptable. And, people have extreme optimism bias, right? So think about it this way. The world isn't actually getting better. The world has never gotten better for wild animals. The vast majority of wild animals exist and live, independently of humanity, and their suffering is the worst because they have the worst conditions. So things have never, ever gotten better for wild animals. They're still born in the same conditions as they were millions of years ago. And suffering is also getting worse for many humans as well. So, we invented the internet and, now we can play video games, but this created worse problems and worse suffering than there was before in certain ways. So because of the internet, there is now a child pornography industry where people are selling it for bitcoins, and there's so much money they can make on the internet doing it that they're literally grabbing children off the street, putting them into dungeons, torturing them. And it's not just sex, right? A lot of this stuff happening online is like literally murder, chopping them up, eating them alive, just insanely bad things, right? Sadistic people exist because of a defect in their brains. So think about it this way as well. 100 years from now, the technology for torture is probably going to be a lot more advanced than it is now. So to say that no one's going to suffer more in the future than they are now is crazy, right? The ability to cause much, much more extreme suffering is coming.
I see. Well, yes, I guess you could say that even progress, in a sense, might be delusion, in a sense. I do agree with that kind of reasoning. Yeah, I mean, the way I would argue for it is that when you boil it down to our basic drives, as our basic neurological drives, what is it that truly drives us? The answer I gave and the answer I have seen motivate me and even motivate a lot, virtually pretty much any biological entity, is pain avoidance, right? You do this, you eat because you want to avoid the pain of hunger. You drink because you want to avoid the pain of thirst. You play video games because you want to avoid the pain of boredom. You seek out relationships because you want to avoid the pain of loneliness. Regardless of your desires, regardless of whatever it is that you want, there is always that same motivation underpinning it, and it's always that desire to escape excruciating pain. And if that is like the whole reason why I do much of anything, right, just pain avoidance, then I guess extinction is not really, I guess it could be a potential solution, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's, by the way, Luke, I think you are already a moderator on a different account. Sorry, just one quick second. On the pro-extinction with the skull, Luke, you're a moderator on this current account. Yeah, so yeah, you're totally right, dude. It's really obvious if you think about it from the point of view of billions of years of more suffering, right? What could possibly justify that? So people, like I've been saying, because of nature, because of evolution, we effectively have irrationality built into our brains. Okay, and that forces us to just assume that life is, shouldn't be questioned, right? Think about it this way: if animals or humans were able to think, life shouldn't exist, or they didn't have that overwhelming survival instinct, right? Then they would have never made it ever, right? They just wouldn't have survived. They wouldn't have existed, right? So it's only that forced optimism, that forced irrational optimism, and all the other primal motivations like sex and stuff like that has gotten us into this situation and this cycle. And that same optimism is now being, glorified by the little intelligence that humans do have.
I mean, I wouldn't really phrase it that way, but yes, I do mostly agree with you here. It's just that I don't think, although I might find the position to be tenable, it's never going to get accepted mainstream. People are going to resist it. People are going to, it's like, I'm not saying that what you're doing here, does not really do much of anything. Maybe you might convince a few people here. But it's like, despite that fact, the position is never going to make it, mainstream. It's never going to because you said it yourself.
But no position ever did.
Sure.
So there was never more than 50% support for abolishing slavery,
Sure. Yes.
right?
And
So
I mean,
most of the big social changes have been forced, right?
yes.
So and for any movement or change in history, there's never been more than 1% of the population that came out and protested on the streets and tried to change it, right? The vast majority of the population are always going to be just at home chilling, and they don't want to get involved, right? So that's always been the case. So what you're describing has never been an obstacle for change in the past.
I mean, has it really changed anything? You might think that yes, legally, slavery has abolished, but did that actually abolish slavery? Is there not more slavery today than there was in the past?
Well, that's the whole point of extinction, right? You can't abolish all suffering without extinction.
Exactly.
So it's a great question again about how are you going to change the world if there's so few people on board. So the thing is, and I've explained this before, this will be a multi-generational project, a multi-generational movement. It's not going to happen today or tomorrow, but even if we don't see the results in our lifetime, we know that we've laid the foundation and started growing the movement to make it possible. What's more likely, causing extinction without a serious organization trying to make it happen, or with it, right? So anything is possible as long as we're trying to achieve it. And the movement is new, it's still very young, and yet everyone on board is extremely dedicated. So pro-lifers, what is their motivation? Their motivation is to, like you said, avoid some suffering, maybe have a takeaway tonight, maybe a pizza. Extinctionists, however, have trillions of victims depending on us, who are being tortured or will be tortured. So our motivation is much, much higher than a pro-lifer who's just thinking about pizza.
Yeah, I guess that's something. Yeah.
Wait, can I just interfere? What's the agenda here? What's your position? What's your take on extinction? What's the agenda here?
So we're an actual movement and an actual organization working to achieve extinction for all. We're suffering abolitionists, effectively. This is the website. I don't know if you can see it, but it's proextinction.com. You can check out our frequently asked questions, our manifesto, information about us, loads of good stuff like that. All of our resources are on there. So we are people that have realized that billions of more years of terrible suffering is something that should be stopped, and that it's the right thing to do. And that's it. We're working towards it. So the thing is, right, here's the real clincher for you guys. Here's the really cool thing about it. So there's terrible suffering in the world, all of this awful stuff happening. What other solution is there? Extinctionists aren't people that are in a death cult or hate life or want to see the world burn. They're people that thought, what political party should I vote for? The world's really bad. What should we do about it? Why is the world run by dictators? What should we do? How can I be on the right side of the world? How can I be in the right? How can I be a good person? When there's billions of years of extreme suffering ahead for wild animals that are going to be, every single one is forced into existence without consent, and then the vast majority of them are eaten alive. They have diseases. Their babies are born with cancer in the wild, right? Their conditions have never improved. They have the worst conditions out of all life on the planet. Even farmed animals have medicine, shelter, safety from predation. It's terrible for them as well, but at least they're not being eaten alive. They get euthanized, right? Wild animals have the worst conditions, the worst suffering. And, we're just people that have kind of woken up to the fact that all of this suffering is wrong and that we should prevent it. That there's no good side to this coin, right? Especially for wild animals, there's no like extremely happy animals out there, and literally over 99.9% just die painfully as babies. So we realize that this is terrible and that we should feel empathy for them and that we should treat them as fellow life forms. Okay, that horrible guy earlier in the chat was trying to say that we shouldn't care about animals and we shouldn't care about their suffering. But the thing is, we could have been born as an animal. Your mother could have been born as a wild animal, right? So why shouldn't we have empathy for them? Why shouldn't we care about them? All of nature up until this point has been about tribalism and finding ways to discriminate against others. If that weren't the case, then predators wouldn't be able to go around eating animals because they'd feel guilty about it, right? So nature essentially forced animals and humans to not have guilt, not have empathy, and the entire mentality is fundamentally based on discrimination, tribalism, and it's a biological disability basically.
If I could say something, would you be open to like transhumanism?
Yeah, I mean, so the thing is, right, like transhumanism is, if you ask me, it's just another way of saying reducing suffering, right?
Yeah.
So, in a sense, we're already doing transhumanism as a species. We're trying to cure cancer, we're developing better computers or whatever you want to say, right? So conditions are already improving kind of in that sense, right? So we're not saying stop doing that. We're saying, there's no justification for anyone to suffer, right? If the trade-off was one baby gets raped to death, or if there was only one victim at stake here, we'd still say that no, it's not worth it, right? There's no point all these people running around having sex if it's at the expense of extreme suffering, like a baby getting eaten alive.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Can I say something? So, although you might posit, okay, transhumanism could potentially alleviate all our suffering, it could also do the inverse. Okay, so this is a risk, because what if like some sadist, some sadistic, like let's say AI, although I wouldn't really say artificial intelligence, just decided let's not cure suffering, let's hook a nervous system to the worst torture device that ever existed, and let's hook them up to it for 10,000 years, for example.
Yeah. Did you guys watch Black Mirror?
That's also a real risk with transhumanism.
Yeah, watch the TV show Black Mirror. It's all about that.
I'm gonna check it out. I mean, the only reason why I brought up transhumanism is the idea, to live forever. Because, if you could live forever and alleviate a lot of suffering and like biohack your genetics, could like alleviate some like pain, for example, like disabilities and such. But I'm gonna look into that movie. What did you say it was called?
I have a question for Scorzen.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you watch the debate of a transhumanist? We debated with a guy about transhumanism.
I saw that, yeah, I have.
Do you believe in probably if you believe in transhumanism, you probably also believe in utilitarianism, or no?
Utilitarianism? No, I don't really agree with it. No, I don't believe in egalitarianism.
No, you are not an utilitarianist.
No.
Let me explain our position on transhumanism. We think reducing suffering is a good thing, but for extinctionists, only 100% safety and guarantee from it going wrong is acceptable, right? Only 100% safety from bad things like being forced to exist or extreme suffering, a life worse than death. Only 100% safety from that is acceptable. Now,
okay, but that seems like utilitarianism. kind of like.
Okay, but do you see any utilitarians, working towards anything rational? No.
I mean, for in the utilitarian, the most important thing is that in the word itself. Like the utility. Is it great for society or no? And then from that they choose what is better.
Yes, but here we can be negative utilitarians.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that exists as well, but that's like the thing when it becomes extreme choice between two things. Utilitarians always choose the one which is for a better outcome. That's the thing
Wait,
which
can I pose a
utilitarians
question?
believe.
Could I pose a question to James? You said that 100% alleviation of all pain is acceptable for you, right?
Safety from.
Safety from. But don't you think that there's always going to be this source of evil or this source of pain that's always going to exist, even if it's 0.1%? Don't you think that it will always
And even
be
then,
there?
scores
Well,
that
no,
even
no,
then.
the 100% safety is extinction. It's non-existent. So if I have a child,
James,
right? Yeah.
So James, you believe in nihilism then,
I mean,
or no?
I haven't really thought about it, but an extinctionist the other day did say that technically it kind of is nihilistic. Yeah, that we don't cling to meaning or anything like
Not only
that.
nihilistic, it's also anti-natalist, kinda. It's both. It's both nihilistic and it's anti-natalist, right?
Antinatalism is actually a bad thing. It causes more suffering for wild animals because each human takes up the space of thousands of animals who would suffer much worse.
But anti-natalist is like they want as less human suffering as possible, right?
But it's a self-defeating ideology. You're never going to convince every human to stop reproducing, and antinatalists breed themselves out of existence. Right? They leave the world to horny sadists. And they also don't do anything for animals. Right? You can't convince animals to stop reproducing. So it's opting out of the system instead of fighting the system.
So it's kind of like a dead end right then.
It's completely self-defeating. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. So as I was saying earlier about 100% safety from suffering, if I have a child today, how difficult will it be to guarantee 100% safety from suffering and from having a bad life? It's very impossible, basically, right? They could develop chronic pain. They could develop brain cancer, schizophrenia, all sorts of terrible things. They could get kidnapped and put into a dungeon and tortured. I like to say that nobody in the world, no one, is safe from being the next person to break the world record for worst life ever lived, right? So, there's always extreme risk of suffering. And the thing is, we don't see the victims, right? They're 6 feet under. So they're not here to tell us how terrible it was. All we hear is the echo chamber of the lucky ones.
Right, but don't you think that, we should, like, the people that do have these bad lives, like, that's a trade-off to be able to live a better life? For example, if we go with the example of transhumanism, and we are able to biohack and like do a genetic hacking and such, and we are able to get rid of like a lot of diseases, or you can customize your baby, you can do whatever, but you don't eliminate suffering because other humans are going to be able to put you through suffering. Wouldn't you want to take that trade-off?
So for extinctionists, they have too much empathy to allow suffering. They're people that say, if I get to live my life, but I know that someone is in hell as a direct result, if that's the cost, right? I get to go to heaven, but someone else goes to hell. We wouldn't be able to enjoy heaven knowing that someone is being tortured at the same time, and that we can put an end to it. And it's the same with the risk as well. So it's not just there is a victim suffering. If it's possible that kind of thing is going to happen, then the risk is almost just as bad as the actual thing happening itself.
Okay, I have a hypothetical. Let's say somebody tries to rob you, and he takes whatever it is that you have, your wallet. Would you have empathy for him to say that, okay, maybe he needed that, or would you run after him?
I mean, I don't know. It depends on the individual's feelings at the time, right? I mean, our main empathy is towards the infinite victims that are being tortured and will be tortured, right? So our drive in life is, how can I do the right thing for the victims? So we try not to think about small things like that because we have much bigger things to focus on.
Okay, I see that. I just I don't really see it as a realistic thing. I agree with you. I wish we could have that reality where we could alleviate all types of torture, all types of suffering. But I just don't see it as realistic. I just, the world has always been tribal.
Right, but like I said, highly motivated people are on the case.
So hopefully you'll be able to crack it. Hopefully you'll be able to get more members and make
Yeah.
a big impact. But yeah, that's all
Yeah, I
for
mean,
me.
we're only at the start of this thing. Extinctionism has only just started, and it's literally an organization of highly intelligent, highly motivated people that are trying to do the right thing. So they do have the moral high ground, and the motivation for it. And 100 years from now, we'll probably have far more people with far more ability and power and options. And just because we can't think of the way to do it right now, that's like saying if you don't have the cure for cancer, don't try to cure cancer. Don't research it. We have to create the answers.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm dropping. I have some errands to run, but
Yeah.
keep
Thanks for
fighting the
joining
good
us.
fight.
It's been great having you.
Thank you. I guess I'll also be on my way.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Been lovely having you. Good conversation. Much better than the first guy. Bloody hell. So glad some, reasonably intelligent people joined. Right. Would anyone else like to join? Ask questions, even if you just want to give your opinion, that's fine. Jump on the stream. Let's chat, What do you think? Would the world be better off with no suffering, or do you think suffering is fine? Would you be happy to live, and are you able to ignore all the suffering in the world? Extinctionists aren't, just because it's not right under your nose doesn't mean it's not happening. If you had like some Google glasses or something, some techno glasses, and they were constantly showing all of the suffering going on, maybe you'd feel a bit more motivated to do something about it. Maybe it's just the fact that you're not seeing it and not looking at it, not looking for it, ignoring it, basically, that's keeping you, sedated, basically. Right. Do we have anyone else that would like to join? Debate extinction. Should life stop existing? Should suffering stop existing? Is there anything that you think can justify existence and the risk of extreme, terrible things? Is that not the basis of morality itself? I don't want anyone to have to suffer for my sake, essentially, right? Morality isn't just I'll donate £5 to charity, right? It's if I have to give up something to prevent a terrible thing happening, then of course we should. I mean, think about it this way: if you had to give up your life to prevent just one person going to hell, and let's say it's just 100 years of hell, I mean, I'd do it, right? Just because hell isn't like stubbing your toe, right? It's way, way worse than that. Now, this sounds a bit cringe, maybe, I don't know, but the other night I had an extremely lucid and vivid dream, probably because I'm thinking about this kind of stuff, but it was a nightmare, and extremely vivid and lucid, where I was being eaten alive by sharks, okay? And the emotional terror and fear, because obviously when you're dreaming, it feels real, right? But the physical pain and the emotional terror, Now, I can't say it was as real as the real thing, but I can tell you that it was absolutely horrifying and horrifically painful. It's one of the worst dreams I've ever had. But that kind of horror is going on all the time, all around the world. Hello, Skipper. How are you doing?
Great. We're talking about extentation, right? I think he's overrated.
We're talking about extinctionism. It's a movement to
No,
end.
extentation.
Right. Yeah, kind of overrated, I guess. Some good songs, though.
Yo, how dare you say that? He's actually really good.
No, he's all right.
Nah, he's really good.
True.
Yo, this nigga muted me from chat. Like, what? I'm
Well, we're here to
sleeping.
debate serious topics. We're here to debate suffering and.
What do you mean? Like,
Not to end
extinction?
it.
Should we all die? Yes or no? I don't want to. No, I don't think we should all die.
So extinctionism isn't about humans dying. It's about helping others, like animals. So the vast majority of life on this planet, there's 8 billion humans, but there's not just trillions, but quadrillions, if not quintillions of animals on the planet. And they're suffering way worse than we are. So a suffering-free planet with no animals to suffer and be tortured is what we should work towards.
To be honest, I don't know what you're talking about. That's not what extentation is.
All right. I mean, I guess.
Take care, bro.
Thanks for coming on. Finally, a guest that was able to leave by themselves. Tried to kick the first guy, and he just kept coming back on because I don't know how to use TikTok. Right. Would anyone else like to join? What do you think? Would you be happy for someone to be tortured for your sake? Do you think a world where Star Trek, Strange New Worlds, the show, they did an episode on this actually. Now they didn't fully go into extinction, but it's a similar kind of idea. This episode, there was a society on an alien planet, and it was a utopia. Everything was beautiful. Everyone was perfectly healthy and all that. But for whatever crazy reason, the machine and the AI that operated the planet and created this utopia, it relied on torturing one human child at a time, basically. So, they had to pick a victim and force them into a torture machine to be tortured horrifically. But it meant that everyone else got to have a good time. Now, if you ask me, that is a sickening society, but it's a really great way of making the point, right? That it's wrong and terrible to try and have a great time at the direct expense of others, right? It's wrong. It's immoral. How can you possibly go about enjoying life knowing that someone's being tortured? And that it's the direct relationship is you're having a good time instead of helping them, right? You're allowing them to be tortured or making them be tortured so that you can go off and have some ice cream. It's wrong. It's terrible. Imagine if they weren't out of sight, out of mind, right? What if what if legally you had to have a screen on your wall, a TV, showing all of this horrific suffering and saying, like, you can stop this now? Would you just sit there and watch it and enjoy it? Or would you cover it up with a blanket or something? What would you do? Would anyone else like to join the stream? Come and give us your opinion. Ask questions. What are we doing about it? We have a movement. We have an organization. Throughout history, every movement has only targeted helping tribalistically one group, okay? So vegans only care about farm animals, antinatalists only care about their own human babies. They don't even care about all human babies because you can't voluntarily get everyone to stop reproducing. Antinatalists are breeding themselves out of existence and leaving the world to horny sadists. It's saying, like, I won't stop you from being evil. I'm just not going to be evil myself. That's That's just insane, basically. So yeah, every movement has been irrational and discriminatory throughout history. It was only a matter of time before a movement like the pro-extinction movement started to target all suffering, not just the suffering of slaves or the suffering of farmed animals, but the suffering of all life. So, how do you make that possible? You don't pray and wish for it. Humanity is the vehicle for helping others and all life. So, in that sense, we want humanity to be godlike in their morality and their selflessness. So, yes, we should try and help others at our own expense. We should try and prevent billions of years of suffering at our own expense. Now, it may take humanity thousands of years to achieve total animal extinction. It may take hundreds of years, millions of years, who knows? But the movement wants to have a suffering-free world, with no animal suffering, then potential space suffering, right? This is really interesting, and we haven't actually gone into this on any of our videos yet because it's new research. But new research has just come out from a serious scientist. You can check it out. I'll put some links online later, showing that life is much more likely to develop in space than previously expected or understood. That essentially the sunlight is what causes life, according to this new theory and research, and that if you shine some light onto a surface, for example, for millions of years, it becomes more entropically efficient to have life to help displace that energy. So, for example, if you have thousands of beads and you pump them full of energy and they start vibrating, they will form an organized way to dissipate and balance out that energy. And effectively, that is looking likely that is the same thing with life. So, according to this new scientific research, if you have a planet that can potentially sustain life and you have sunlight, then it is almost inevitable that plant life will develop, and potential other forms of life too can arise out of that, become more complex and sentient. Now, this is a horrifying but probably true theory, according to our research, which actually means that our moral obligation to try and prevent all suffering in the universe is much, much greater than previously understood. And even if there's no alien suffering today, there could be aliens suffering 1 billion years from now, 5 billion years from now. And as the only intelligent species capable of helping them, animals can't help themselves, it is our moral obligation. Now, why is it our moral obligation? For extinctionists, they have empathy, right? So what does that mean? It means that, if my action is going to allow, extreme suffering, then I don't want to do it, right? It's something I care about. I can be motivated by the suffering of others just as much, if not more so, than my own suffering. So most people, they're only motivated by their own suffering. But if you're motivated by everyone's suffering, universal suffering, then suddenly you want to do the right thing for everyone, right? You want a fair system, you want a good system, you want no suffering, right? If you're empathetic to the suffering of others, then you should care about their suffering. You should care about all suffering. So you can't just ignore it. So we have potentially the entire universe depending on us. Now, there could be other intelligent life out there that will also become extinctionist. But there might not be. And, they could develop 1 billion years later, much too late for the victims that we could help. So it's our moral obligation, it's our duty. What most people don't understand is that this isn't just some logic thing that you just stumble upon or read about and think, or convince people. It's not about convincing. It's actually much more of a biological thing. And that's what most people just simply cannot understand. Extinctionists are biologically, have the brain biology to have more room in the brain for empathy for others, right? Most people, they only have enough space to think about what pizza they're going to order tonight, or I stubbed my toe or something like that. But if you're thinking, right, all this terrible stuff is going on, what should I do about it? I want to do something about it because I hate seeing all of this terrible stuff. That's the kind of person, people extinctionists are. They care about the suffering of others and everyone. Can you really point to anyone in the world that says, I care about all suffering or all life? Extinctionists care about all life, right? And if you do care about all life, then you wouldn't accept a single child getting raped to death or animal being tortured, right? How could you possibly say that's fine? You can't. And that is the straw man version of the argument, because we're not talking about one life form getting tortured. We're talking about, virtually infinite life forms getting tortured. And that's just on Earth, right? And that's just today, let alone billions of more years of it happening on Earth and in the universe as well. So, I love talking about this topic in particular, and I've just made a video on it yesterday, I think. Extinctionists are going to create God. I love talking about this because it's an amazing idea, right? Extinctionists are going to create a moral and good AI, effectively. So the extinctionist world and vision for the future is not going around murdering everyone. It's having effectively a utopia, but while also preventing forced existence and suffering for other life. So that is our purpose. That's our duty. That's the meaning in life. Effectively, helping others, preventing forced existence and terrible suffering. If I have a child right now, I can't guarantee it's going to be safe or have a good life. It might hate life and hate me for bringing it into the world. I can't protect it. The only way I can, guarantee that terrible things won't happen to it is to not have it. So life is actually a curse, not a blessing. If we lived in some kind of heaven with 100% safety from suffering and terrible things, it would be different. But that's not the case. It's the absolute opposite. We're effectively in hell and saying, we should end hell. So extinctionists are saying we should put an end to hell. Let's liberate life from hell, from being forced into hell. It's really simple, obvious logic. Why should any life form have to suffer terribly and be in hell? They shouldn't. And how can you possibly, have a good time and enjoy your life knowing that it's at the direct expense of letting that happen? Anyway, so looks like the stream is winding down a bit. If anyone else wants to join, now's your chance before I go off. Otherwise, thank you for joining us, everyone. We've gotten through some great topics today. And it's been really good, actually, apart from all of the restrictions from TikTok. I hate the fact that you can't just have a conversation and you get censored like that. Yeah, okay. I'm out. Peace, everyone. Check out the website, proextinction.com. Read about the movement, join the movement, help the movement. Help us prevent billions of years of suffering for animals. Let's have a suffering-free world. It's not about killing, it's about preventing. It's about safety from suffering, protecting life. It's about empathy, doing the right thing. Saving life from being forced into hell. Come on, let's do it. Check out the website, join our Discord, join our WhatsApp, get in touch, let us know how you'd like to help. Doing activism is extremely easy and simple. You can literally just post on social media, say, encourage people to join the movement and grow the movement. There's lots of other ways that you can help as well. I've just designed and set up the website myself, so that there's loads of things that you can get on board and get involved with and help us, move society in the right direction. Let's grow the movement to abolish suffering. Yeah, it's not going to be easy. You're right, Luke, but there's nothing better to do. You know, with infinite victims depending on us, how can we say, you know, fuck them, I'm going to go watch TV instead? Now, extinctionists do have leisure time, you know, but so there's a balance, right? We're not saying don't spend time with your family or anything like that, but we do have an obligation to help. Even if you only have a little bit of time, it's better than nothing. So get in touch today, see how you can help. We'd love to chat with you. Right. Does anyone else want to join the stream? This is your final chance before I leave. If you want to have a debate, a conversation, type in the comments now. Request to join. I'm going to give it a few more seconds. Does anyone else want to come on? Does anyone else want to chat? Yay or nay? Activist Doctor, would you like to join on? Let's have a look. Come and debate. Should life stop existing? What do you think? Do you have an opinion? Do you think life should continue to suffer horrifically? Or do you think it should stop? Do you think that there's ever been such thing as a life that shouldn't have existed? You know, some people have the crazy opinion that every single life is a blessing. But, you know, like a baby zebra born into the wild, and then, I mean, some of them aren't even born before they get tortured, right? A lot of them in the womb have diseases. Maybe the mother is starving, and you know, so the baby is suffering. Babies can absolutely feel and suffer while in the womb, and unfortunately, an insane number of animals, like far more than you would ever imagine, are actually eaten out of the womb. So, you know, the pregnant mother will get attacked by an animal, wounded, maybe murdered, killed, whatever, and then the poor baby is literally eaten alive before they've even been born. What kind of horrible experience would that be? So you've just spent, you know, 5 months gestating just to get tortured to death. That's not a good thing, guys. It's definitely something you'd want to prevent, right? To think that every life is having a good time and is better off existing is pure optimism. It's pure irrationality. It's ignoring the victims. It's downplaying the victims. It's saying that their suffering is not that bad. Forget about it. Don't worry about it. You have to try and put yourself in the, you know, the position of the victim. Hello.
I just think it's a bit silly, to be honest.
Would you like to explain why?
I just don't get why, like, everything needs to die. Like, I had this the other night. I saw your video the other night. I was thinking about it, but I can't remember what I said. It's something like, you know how you spend time, like, pursuing this idea and you clearly enjoy it. If you take everybody out of the world, they can't enjoy anything. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like you're taking away the good and bad. I don't know.
But can you name can you name a single good thing or pleasure in the world that is as intense as, you know, the suffering of a child being raped to death?
Maybe the birth of a child. I think it isn't about the single moment, how intense it is, but I think it's about the amount of things in life you enjoy over how much suffering there is. Oh yeah, I'm just talking to some guy on live, mate. Yo. Compared to like how much suffering there is, and then compared to the good in life, I think most lives there's more good than bad.
But that's immediately not true, because over 99.9% of life on this planet dies a cruel and painful death during childhood, usually as babies, never reaching any kind of adulthood, never sort of finding balance in life, but just being tortured to death.
Okay, well, what about if the creature that is dying in that way, do you think they have the capacity to understand the same like level of fear a human does, or feel the same amount of pain?
Much worse, I think. Yeah, because as I was explaining to someone earlier, right? Just because a human could theoretically maybe suffer worse doesn't mean that they are suffering worse, right? So you're not being eaten alive. You're not starving in nature in extreme cold, extreme weather conditions. You're not watching your family get eaten alive and then you get eaten alive. You're not having birds pick your eyes out of your skull while you're still alive. So you're probably not suffering as bad as animals in the worst conditions are.
I don't think I'm suffering to the same degree any animal is, but I also don't know if animals have the same capacity emotionally or intellectually to actually feel the same amount of terror you imagine they would feel.
I mean, the thing is, there's such an incredible diversity of life on this planet. I mean, I don't know the exact number of how many species there are, but I think it's in like the millions or billions, right? There's an insane number of different species with different types of nervous systems, different brains, different experiences. And it's not just, the different physical forms they take, but they have an incredible diversity of experiences. Some of them have it way worse than others. Some of them have all of the bad things. Some of them, have diseases, starvation, rape, some of them have, the entire list, not just one. So, yeah, I mean, just because their suffering might be less, realistically, it's a lot worse.
Well, don't you only feel your empathy for them because you're alive at all?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, every other emotion that can exist, the ability to feel empathy for those creatures, and you know what I mean, every single thing. Why does that deserve to not exist just because suffering can exist?
I mean, do you think child rape should exist?
I don't think it should exist. But then your argument is that watching your child be born, or kissing your mum, or seeing your family shouldn't exist. So I think they're equally as bad.
Yeah, so the thing is, right, it's kind of just out of sight, out of mind is really the actual problem. Okay, people talk about this balance. What about the good and the bad? But really, you can only justify that if you're ignoring the bad and downplaying it and, just ignoring it effectively. If it was in front of you, would you really be able to, have the same enjoyment and balance that you think exists? What do you most about that?
No, I think if something bad were in front of me, you mean?
Yeah.
If something bad were happening in front of me,
Play Xbox if your child was getting raped in the same room as you? Probably not, right? But just because it's happening somewhere else, suddenly people are fine with playing Xbox.
But I think the amount of times things are happening around the world, like the different things, bad things happening right now, there's probably kids being, harassed, and I'm not going to use the words because I'm in somebody's house, but all those things. Think of the amount of things that are currently happening that are good, like across all species, humans, animals, all that stuff. I just don't. My argument really is that why sacrifice all that's good and neutral just because there's a small part of something bad? And even then, the bad things that do happen, right? What I'm saying, a lot of them may result in death, and if they result in death, they're going to be very short compared to the life you live anyway, aren't they? Do you get what I mean?
Not necessarily. I mean, I know lots of people, humans, that have lived an entire life of misery, and they were too afraid to take their own life because of the survival instinct that nature put into their brain. People born with chronic pain, schizophrenia, terrible things, and again, it's optimism bias that makes you kind of ignore this, right, and not think about it. It's not your fault. It's just how the human brain works. But if you think about the worst victims, they don't just have depression or chronic pain. The worst victims have like all of these things, right? They've got so many terrible things going on that it's just unbelievably bad.
Well, do you think you could take your own life?
No. I mean, no, I don't think I could if I wanted to. The survival instinct is so powerful, right? it's almost, you know, the suffering you have to experience to be able to overcome that survival instinct is absolutely horrifyingly extreme. And it's not a good thing that this exists, right? These kind of terrors are just better off not existing.
I understand your point. It's not I don't get it. I think we've both got different views on it, and I don't think really debating it would
Let me
change.
ask you this. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What about animals? Wild animals, right? So 99.9% of them die terrible deaths and have horrible lives. You know, we have, you know, medicine, clothes, shelter. Wild animals in nature have absolutely nothing, right? They have extreme weather, they burn alive in forest fires, they starve to death, and the vast majority of them are eaten alive. And sometimes it takes days for them to be eaten alive, right? It's not always a quick death. And a lot of them are babies when they're eaten alive. So there's no kind of balance there. So would you agree with, you know, a suffering-free world with no animals? Right, we can have robot animals if you really want to keep watching nature documentaries. We can just replace them with robots, right? No suffering, and we can still enjoy the beauty of nature. How about that?
Of course, a world with no suffering would be a better world, but I don't think a world could exist without suffering, because that's just the way it's evolved, and that's the way life has come to exist. You know, obviously things could have evolved in a world where there's no violence, we live forever, and there's zero suffering, but this is just the way it happened. And I think there's no point in destroying the miracle that life is just because of, you know, suffering. So, sorry, something happened in the room.
Well, yeah, I mean, the difference between extinctionist and non-extinctionist is that we're not able to ignore the suffering, right? We're not able to put it out of sight, out of mind. It just constantly weighs on us. Like, for example, I'll give you an example of like a day-to-day life example. If you know, if your mate was playing Xbox and he asks for some pizza, but a child is getting raped next to you that's asking for help, you're going to forget your friend. You're not going to think about it. He's not even going to remotely enter your mind. You're going to be focused on helping that victim, right? So that's the same for extinctionists.
So if you were to cease existing, whatever the word is, if you were to stop existing, why would this matter to you to begin with? Because you're not here to experience the feeling of that, like, strong empathy you feel towards a child who's being done or an animal who's being killed, or
well, for us, it's not about the feelings. It's about the victims, right? So we're not thinking about it from our perspective. We're thinking about it from their perspective. You know, they don't want to be forced to exist. They don't want to suffer. They don't want to be eaten alive. It's not a good life. It's not something they want. They're better off not having it. It's a life worse than death, right?
Downstairs. There's some kebab meat downstairs on the stove if you want any.
yeah, I'll have some in a minute. Well, I feel like, why not use the resources that you might build or the following that you might build instead of trying to make everything go extinct? Why not use them to try and just create more happiness and less suffering? Because does that not make more sense?
So historically and logically, reducing suffering is just a tool of oppression, right? It's saying, let's not end slavery, let's just reduce it a little bit so that we can, as an excuse to not end slavery, right? It's what actually happened and happens with all sort of injustices. You know, I won't stop making you suffer, I'll just reduce it slightly and hope that you stop complaining.
So, okay, if you'd want everything to stop existing, why would you want to take, like, living things right to live from them against their will? I understand they might not exist already, but why would you want to take things right to exist against their will just because they might suffer in some way? I feel like you're removing their autonomy, you know, you're not giving them the choice to live.
Yeah, well, so, you know, people ask this a lot, you know.
He's not a vegan, he's something else.
Yeah, people ask extinctionists this a lot, you know, wouldn't extinction violate the consent of others? But nature and existence has already violated their consent in much worse ways. So, you know, it's essentially undoing that evil. And actually, furthermore, most life here is born with irrationality, right? An animal can't make decisions, and most humans can't make decisions either, right? No one can really disagree with the fact that most people are complete idiots, right? So they don't really have the intelligence to do the right thing for themselves, let alone for others.
Well, if they don't have the intelligence to do the right thing for themselves, do you think they have the intelligence to understand, like, how deeply they should fear, or have the capacity to understand the fear they're feeling, or the terror they feel
Yeah.
whenever these things happen to them?
So it's not something you think out, you know.
No.
Most of the things that go on in your mind and your feelings are just automatic. They're from the subconscious. You know, if someone stabs you in the back, you don't decide to feel pain. You're forced to feel pain.
Well, I understand that. Well, you know,
But if you want to find out more, you can check out our website, proextinction.com, and you can
I
read all
had a
about
little
it.
look. I had a little look last night, but I only saw you were live, so I felt like I'd join this. But okay, well, you know, it was nice talking. You know, I'm gonna follow you, not because I automatically agree, but I'm just interested in hearing about this idea and that. But is this satire or not? Is this a very, very deep joke?
No. We're a serious organization. So, like, the thing is, like, here's the kind of proof, right? Is anyone in the world sort of organizing towards utopia? No, right? Because the people that would be organizing towards a utopia and world peace, they became extinctionist because they realized that doing the right thing means preventing child rape, preventing victimization, preventing forced existence and extreme suffering.
Okay. No, I understand that.
There is no like middle ground, basically. People that want to do the right thing become extinctionists. They want to prevent billions of years of suffering.
I just see extinctionists as extinctionists, my bad. I see it just as like the most, it's like the nuclear option to me. I just don't understand why you feel the need that every single thing should be taken out of. I've said this, I'm repeating myself now, but you understand my point, don't you?
Yeah, no, totally. But think about it this way, right? We don't want humans. So if we could push a button that made the universe stop existing, we would do it. But that's probably not going to happen. It's probably going to be a much longer, drawn-out process than that. So to that end, humanity will continue to exist and should exist for thousands, if not millions, of years, as we, become our true selves and become, fight against suffering, the only bad thing. The alternative is to just ignore suffering and be hedonistic and focus on pleasure and just turn a blind eye to it. But there's such a great evil out there, which is forced existence. No one chooses to exist, and extreme suffering. So that is our duty as a species to go out and help others and prevent all of this suffering. So it could become like Star Trek, basically.
Star Trek? What does
Yeah.
what do you mean Star Trek? Like, I don't know what happens in Star Trek, sorry.
Well, Star Trek is kind of about like a utopia society. There's no more war or violence among humans. They're all like on the same page, and they're flying around in space trying to do stuff. It's possible that extinctionism could turn out being like that. We've got, instead of colonizing planets just for the hell of it, we'll be colonizing space to prevent suffering for other life. It's a morally, ethically driven mission of peace and love. And actually gives us a reason and justification to go out and to continue existing.
Wait, so you're saying going to other planets and places to kill the creatures there to stop any more from suffering, you're saying?
So it's not about killing, it's about euthanasia isn't the same as killing, basically. But the thing is, if you don't euthanize all of the animals on Earth, for example, then the suffering will continue for billions of years. So it's about breaking that cycle. It's not about killing. The victims that we care about, the vast majority are in the future. They don't exist yet, but they'll all be born into this endless hell unless we just turn the switch off, basically.
Well, I feel like if you asked most of those people from the future, they would 100% say no. Even if you ignore the survival instinct, they would still consciously like choose that they would want to live. I don't think.
That's a great question. So let me ask you this:
Yeah.
if I genetically engineer, I don't know, a child to enjoy being raped and tortured, does that make it okay? Because that's effectively what nature has done.
That is a weird question. That is a weird question, because I feel like your argument is not your argument, but the main thing about it
Well, think
being
about it this
bad
way.
is because some.
I have an even better example. Okay, so
Okay.
let's say someone is chronically in pain. They want to, euthanize themselves, but their survival instinct is too overwhelming, and because of that survival instinct, they're going to suffer horrifically, and all day, every day, they're just begging for someone to put them out of their misery. Right? Just because they can't do it themselves, doesn't mean that they wouldn't be better off with it. Right? So, not just because a life has a will doesn't mean that that will should be respected automatically.
I think that's an individual case. I don't think every person in the future is going to suffer in that way. I think.
But like I said, 99.9% of life on the planet is going to suffer that way. So that's already an undeniable reality.
I thought your argument was for humans. What you're saying now, the example.
So, I mean, we care about all life, animals. Humans are the only species intelligent enough to, help animals not be forced into suffering. So, it's our moral obligation to do the science and the engineering to cause extinction on Earth for animals and to prevent billions of years more suffering.
Okay, well, I kind of understand that. I've given you a follow, and I am at my friend's house, so I'm going to.
That's totally cool, dude. It has been great having you on. Maybe check out some more of my videos on my TikTok, or maybe check out the website a bit more. We also have a Discord that you're free to join and ask more questions.
All right. Well, I'll just I remain curious. I'm just interested in seeing what.
That's great.
Yeah. All right. Well. Okay. Well, take care and that. I'll go.
Yeah, it's been great having you on. Thank you for the questions. Catch you later.
All right. Yeah. Catch you later. Bye.
Cheers. All right, guys. I am going to go now because must have been like 2 or 3 hours or something. This has gone actually a lot better than I thought. So yeah, it's been pretty great. Check out my channel, click on my name, have a look. I've recently put out some really great videos about extinctionism, some fantastic explanations, if I do say so myself. We've also got some memes that you can enjoy about extinctionism. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. Check out the website, proextinction.com. Maybe join our Discord, ask questions. We're happy to talk to anyone and everyone. Learn more about us and consider doing activism with us. We have to take action to prevent all of this suffering. It's not going to happen by itself. Grow the movement with us to make it possible. And thank you for joining, and goodbye.